According to every major news outlet right now, American travel to Europe this summer is breaking all kinds of records. It's already up 55% compared to last year, and last year was already up 600% from the year before.
Add inflation to that, and you are talking about the most expensive European travel in history.
But if you're like us, you will not let anything deter you from your summer European travel plans. So, how the heck do we do this without going completely broke this summer?
There are four main categories that make up most of the costs of traveling in Europe. One, of course, is transportation. Two is accommodations. Three is food. And four is activities. We're going to use our 10 years of experience traveling in Europe to show you all of our hacks for all four of these categories to save money this year while traveling in Europe.
The first major category of expenses is transportation. So, we got a rude awakening when 6 weeks ago we logged on to get our tickets to France, and oh my gosh, those ticket prices were insane.
Brutal!
I nearly died.
I've never seen them that bad.
But there are ways to get around this. So, number one, be very flexible about which airport you fly into. We were able to save $400 per ticket just by flying into Geneva and not into Paris.
Number two, be very flexible about when exactly you go. We were able to save $200 per ticket by leaving not the weekend of July 4th, which is what our original plan was, and instead leaving a full week earlier at the end of June. That was a really big difference. Also, sometimes just flying a slightly different day of the week can be a lot cheaper. Usually weekends are the most expensive, but just play around with it a little bit, and that can save you at least a couple $100 per ticket.
Always search with the flexible dates search option. This next hack might seem obvious to some of you, but we have been shocked by how many of our friends and family have not signed up for credit cards with travel bonuses.
Even your parents.
Come on, Mom and Dad.
It's not like they don't watch our videos.
It's okay. We got them all signed up. They got free flights to France last year. It's all good.
True.
We definitely used our points this year to get at least one of our flights for free, which was a huge cost savings.
Really was. Another really expensive aspect of transportation is getting around within Europe. Now, a lot of people will buy a Eurail pass, but honestly, that's only really helpful if you're going from major city to major city. Then it is a good deal. But for reasons that we'll talk about later, including accommodations, we don't really like spending the majority of our time in major cities. And if you want to go to smaller places, Eurail and buses are a big hassle and actually pretty expensive. So we like to rent a car, but there are really great hacks for renting a car cheaply.
When it comes to getting a rental car in Europe, our number one hack for saving money is to not rent your car from one of the major cities. Instead, go to a suburban town and get your rental car there for $40 to $50 cheaper per day. We did this last summer when we were traveling in Italy. We were in Rome, but instead we took a train to Padova where we rented our car and got it way cheaper for a whole month.
Another really important hack for renting cars in Europe is getting a small one. Europeans do not have the same fetish for giant cars and SUVs that Americans have. And so they will charge you a ton for a big car. The really tiny little cars seem scary at first because you're like, how am I going to get all my bags in there? But you manage, and it is a way better deal. And the final thing, also having to do with Europe versus America, is be willing to drive a stick shift. That is usually at least $10 to $20 a day cheaper. So bone up on those stick shift skills and save money on European car rentals.
For those of you who don't want to rent a car, a really great option in Europe is BlaBlaCar.
That's a car share service that's like a combination of Uber and hitchhiking. Basically, it sets you up with someone who's driving the direction that you're driving, and you just make a deal with them. Usually, it just costs you basically the gas money to the place, and you have a great conversation with a person. It is so nice. Much cheaper actually than renting a car. Not quite as convenient, obviously, but it really beats trains and buses in terms of the expense. Now, when it comes to getting around within cities themselves, we highly recommend walking everywhere. It's by far the best way to get to know these cities. It's beautiful, you interact with people, and oh my God, you just don't have to deal with subways and taxis there are very, very expensive. Walking is fantastic. And if you're carrying your bags and you have too much stuff to feel like you want to walk, we have another little hack that we discovered on accident in Rome, remember?
Oh my gosh, you guys. There was a really, really scary moment when we were leaving for the airport one morning in Rome. And we had ordered a taxi the night before. It was going to be like almost $100. It was crazy. But our taxi never showed up. And so we were there freaking out with all of our luggage. And then Adam's like, look, there's a Lime scooter. And we both ran for the Lime scooter. You guys, it was such a scene.
What was hilarious was that we were able to put two giant suitcases, two smaller bags, me sitting on the bags, and then Elise standing on the back and hanging onto me, all of us onto this Lime scooter, just creaking down Roman streets to the train station. And we made it with time to spare.
I'm sure Lime Scooter is not happy about us promoting this right now, so this is our little secret.
Second major category is lodging. And our biggest trip for saving on lodging is to just not stay in major cities too much. Because, especially this summer, everyone and their dog is going to all the major cities and just like, queuing up for the museums and all that stuff. So, rooms in major cities are going to be at a premium. We really love being in smaller towns. That's where you get to interact with actual people and get to know the landscape and the area. It's honestly a lot more fun, a better way to get to know a country. And the lodging is way, way less expensive than it is in major metropolitan areas.
Our second major tip is to really try to utilize house rental sites, things like Airbnb, Verbo. But here's a little secret tip. When we stay in an Airbnb, we'll stay for a few days and then we'll make friends with the owner. And sometimes, if we just ask the owner, hey, do you have a couple of extra days, either this week or later in the week, that we can stay? Often we'll get to stay there for a cheaper price. They'll often give you a little bit of a discount without all the extra cleaning fees. We've saved hundreds of dollars this way.
Yeah, it's great. And you get to know the owner, which is really nice. And finally, when you stay in hotels, especially in smaller towns, you can apply that same approach where you talk to the owner or the manager and just say, hey, do you think you could work us a deal for the next few days? And it actually does work. We stayed in the most beautiful hotel in the Dolomites last summer, and they gave us a great deal, and they're going to do the same thing again this summer.
Last but certainly not least, when it comes to lodging, is the absolute cheapest option of all, which are the little European huts that you can find all along hiking trails throughout Europe.
In Italy, they're called refugios. They're so adorable. And basically, you cannot drive to almost any of these. You actually have to hike to them. So it's when you're doing a through hike, like the Tour de Mont Blanc, let's say, and you can book these little rooms, or sometimes it's just beds in a kind of a dormitory style room. So it's not luxurious, but it is inexpensive. They give you dinner, they give you breakfast, you meet all kinds of other hikers. It is the best.
Those have been my all time favorite experiences while traveling in Europe.
Really, I mean, just the best in every way, and definitely help to keep prices down. The third major expense category is food. And we have one very simple and very effective tip for how to save on food, especially if you're in the bigger and more expensive cities. And that is, do not go out for expensive dinners or lunches or any kind of meal like that. Instead, go to like a little boulangerie and get some bread, go to a fromagerie, get some cheese. So delicious, so fantastic. Italy, France, Switzerland, they all have such great bread and cheese and meat options and very cheap wine. So you get a bottle of wine and you just go and you eat it in a park or somewhere beautiful. We're talking about maybe $10 for a delicious dinner. Feast. I'm talking two different cheeses, some meat, some bread, a bottle of wine, maybe more than $10 when you add in the bottle of wine, but certainly under 20 for two people. And it is just fantastic. And that's as opposed to buying a kind of a mediocre meal and spending like maybe $120 for a dinner in a major city.
Well, remember in Paris when we weren't so budget conscious, We spent, gosh, hundreds trying to eat at this restaurant that was right next to the Eiffel Tower. Guys, you can just take all of your picnic items that Adam just described and literally go sit underneath the Eiffel Tower and have an incredible romantic dinner for $10.
Paris is a great example too, because there's also these beautiful parks all over. Just, I don't know how many times we did that in Paris, maybe 5 times,
Yeah,
found a different beautiful park or
it's
something.
so romantic.
It's so romantic. It's just wonderful. You want to be outside. That's the best thing. Now, there are some great restaurants, and go ahead and splurge on that like one night.
Yeah.
But the rest of the days, follow this advice. It will save you hundreds of dollars and be more fun. Promise.
Our second major tip when it comes to food is to always have snacks around. Those of you who watch Live Hard, Love Hard know that we are pros when it comes to having snacks at all times. And when it comes to travel, it's no different for us. So, the very first thing that we do when we get into any new European town is find a local market and stock up.
Our final tip for saving money on food is when you do want to eat out, don't just automatically go for the famous Michelin starred restaurant. Ask around, ask locals where is a great place to eat. And you can even say a great affordable place to eat if you want. But so often it'll be this fantastic mom and pop hole in the wall where they treat you like family. The food is amazing. The house wine is not expensive. It's just a great experience. And yeah, you're not going to brag about it on Instagram the same way you would with a Michelin starred place, but wow, is it a lovely experience. The last category where people spend way too much money is on activities. Do not hire some kind of tour guide to shove you onto a bus and ferry you around Rome or Milan. Walk around, explore on your own. There's so many websites and great resources for what to do and where to go. You do not need someone to tell you that stuff and charge you 200 euros.
Mhm. We make our own walking tour for every major city we go to. So we've done like marathons in Paris, in Rome, in Venice. It is the most incredible way to see the city. And often we're all alone. We're not surrounded by this monstrous group of people on this tour.
This is especially true if you get up early in the morning. What's really great about European cities is the architecture, it's the history, and walking around a place like Rome early in the morning is unbelievable. So much better than paying all this money to go up in some tower where you wait in line for 2 hours and you're like, oh, this is the tower. Ah, the heck with that. And by the way, this applies for all levels of physical ability. You do not have to run a marathon through these cities. We've seen people in all kinds of different wheelchairs and motorized scooters and things like that, just buzzing happily through the streets of some of these beautiful cities, and they're not spending a dime.
Now, we're not saying to never go into any attractions. We just advise to pick them really carefully. So, one thing we do is we will just choose one thing that's really important to us in whatever major city we're in. So, we both really wanted to go to the Vatican and the Sistine Chapel. It's not cheap, but it was really worth it. And having just that one single experience that we paid for made it even more special for us.
And for those of you who are interested in exploring some of the mountain towns like we are, do not be lured in by the gondola business. Yeah, if you're older or you have a disability, a gondola can be a great way to get to the top of some of these mountains, but there are always amazing trails. Often there's a via ferrata for those of you who are really adventurous, and you can go right up the face of the mountain and then get to a hut at the top and have a delicious coffee. But there's also always hiking trails that are more gradual and most people are capable of doing. And that is how you want to see these mountains. I mean, it's really the way. And then occasionally maybe take a gondola if you're just exhausted or you're injured or something. But oh my gosh, those things are really, really expensive. It's like $100 for a 5-minute ride.
Or more.
Yeah.
Yeah. One really good example of this is the Jungfrau Joch in Switzerland. I've been recently researching activities we can do in Switzerland this summer, and this one comes up time and time again because they have really good branding that basically markets it as the roof of Europe. You guys, this gondola literally does not take you to the top of Europe. I can't even believe that they can market it like that. but it costs over $200 per person. We are not going to be doing that this summer.
We will not be doing that.
Instead, why not go and explore all of the other incredible free hikes that are in the region that give you just as pretty of views?
And if you really want to go to the high point, climb the Matterhorn.
Oh boy. So there you have it. Those were our top tips for traveling Europe affordably this summer.
Hope they're worthwhile for you guys. Hope you enjoyed this. And please, if you have tips or ideas, share them. We love this community. We get so many great ideas from you guys, and I'm sure you get ideas from each other. So let us know in the comments what we forgot.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.